So, welcome to this week's episode of Your Wellness Journey, where we dive into something that has come up quite a bit from some of the people and some of the listeners. It's what are the chemicals around us? How are they impacting it? And how can we take steps in our daily life to alleviate some of those things that are just naturally and unnaturally happening around us? So, I am beyond excited to share the floor today with Tim James, aka the Health Hero, and we'll let him introduce himself in a second here. And he is the owner, founder, brainchild of Chemical Free Body. And we'll learn a little bit about why Chemical Free Body is so important. I will mention before we dive in that we are recording this on video live. So a couple of questions might come up from my Facebook page from people listening in live to this show, which I'll be proctoring and asking Tim. But with no further ado, Tim, thank you ever so much for joining us here today.
Marla, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. It is just when I heard and watched some of the videos of what you've been up to this last 10 years, it's like my little heartstrings kind of went right out to you because there's so much parallel as to what you've experienced. And I'm sure what all of us have experienced. So if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit of how did you become so passionate about health?
Well, I was just healthy as a kid growing up, so I didn't really have any problems there. But I enjoyed being healthy. It was nice, not having aches and pains and be able to do what I wanted to do. But I actually grew up over in Eastern Oregon on a small cattle and hay farm. And we did Hereford cattle and grass hay and some alfalfa. And then we farmed on other farmers' deals and we leased some land and stuff. And I hunted and fished. So, Eastern Oregon's pretty much like Montana. Everybody's got guns. We're hunting and fishing, shooting deer and elk and chuckers and pheasants and quail, whatever. And fishing for trout and steelhead or, bass, whatever. That's all we did. It was a lot of fun being outdoors, hiking. And I ended up getting into baseball, played baseball at a high level for about 30 years. And then in the future, I fast forward, I ended up at age 37 and I found myself 38 pounds overweight. Very tired, not sleeping well. I was eating acid. I had acid reflux really bad, so I was eating Tums and Rolaids all the time. And then I started getting skin issues on my elbows. I started getting what was called eczema, and it got pretty bad. It would crack and bleed all the time and ruin my shirts and people's furniture and stuff at their houses. Embarrassing. And then I had a huge patch of that eczema on my left knee. And then I had another skin issue on my shoulder. Right. And then, here I am, I'm embarrassed because I got this big belly, but now I got all this raunchy skin stuff going on. So it was like really embarrassing to take your shirt off outside, it just doesn't look good. And then, so that doesn't really do good for the self-esteem. And then I was on a trip and with my wife and her dad and some people and we flew to Peru, went to northern Peru, right below Ecuador in a place called Tumbes. And it was like awesome. I mean, the seashells they looked like they should have been in a museum and they were all over the beach. Like it was totally wild. Right. And there was this little place where 9 people stayed in this little place and people would take care of you. Like you would literally, a boat would pull up, you'd hop in the boat, they'd go fishing you go fishing with them. And then they drop you off. And then for lunch, you're eating the fish you caught. It was really cool. So, but I got sick and I had to basically have to get driven in a van through the middle of the night to a hospital where they doped me up and checked me. And then I could get on a plane, which I shouldn't have gotten on a plane, but my wife's dad ran a hospital in Lima and he wanted to get me there for surgery. So I had to get an organ removed. So emergency surgery. I got on a plane, flew there, drove right to the hospital, went right into surgery, destroyed my vacation, not just for me. This is where I learned that my poor health didn't affect just me. It affected everybody around me, physically, emotionally, and financially. So that sucked. And then I came back home. And then a little while after that, and the worst part was I was bleeding rectally. So when I would go to the bathroom, number 2, I had blood coming out. And that went on for 2 years and I had my head buried in the sand because I was like, hope that goes away, because it really wasn't, it was just scary, but I don't know what to do. And I'm like, didn't want to tell anybody. So that was pretty bad. So I get the organ out. So I'm falling apart, but I don't know what's going on. I'm reading books. I'm trying to eat 5 smaller meals throughout the day. more protein, give me my chicken teriyaki bowl, give me some more chicken. I want strong bones. I'll drink milk, doing what I was supposed to do. And then a good buddy of mine on my baseball team got diagnosed with cancer. His name was Kalei Mahoy, and he had 3 little boys, ages 6 to 17. And he ended up, surgery and doing all that stuff. And he passed away 80 pounds under his weight. And it was horrible. We did a fundraiser, and it was really hard on the team. And we got a bunch of macho guys, and we're all crying at this funeral. It was terrible. And fast forward a few years later, another friend of mine at age 43 gets chronic lymphocytic leukemia, which is a supposedly incurable blood cancer. And we end up, he breaks the news to me, and I'm like, oh, geez, he's toast. My grandma died of brain cancer. My aunt died of skin cancer. So I'd been very familiar with it. But they were older. So, when people get older, you think, they got to go with something. But when people start dropping like flies around you at your age, you start like, I got all these problems going on. I'm bleeding, like my elbows are bleeding all day long. I'm bleeding rectally. I don't feel good. I got all these problems, and I don't know what to do. The doctor wanted to put me on Prilosec. It's like, that's not a solution, but it just sounded weird. I didn't do it. I just keep eating tons of Rolaids because I thought that was healthier, which it wasn't. But so then Charles is like, hey, they don't really have a lot for me here. They said they'll give me chemo when it gets bad, and then when it comes back the second time, that's it. They'll put me on an experimental drug, and then hopefully they'll find a cure before I die. That was straight up what they said. So he's an entrepreneur. He's an out-of-the-box thinker. He just had bankruptcy. He's got this cancer diagnosis. He wants to live. He's got a 14-year-old child. Our kids used to play together. And he's like, I found this place. It's called the Hippocrates Health Institute. They're in West Palm Beach, Florida. And they're a 65-year-old detox and nutrition clinic that's not just a they're a school. That's what they are. Because when you go there, there's 40 hours of lectures, education every week for 3 weeks in their 3-week life transformation program. So I went with him to support him to do this transformation program deal. On the plane flight there, he says, oh, by the way, there's no meat, no dairy, no salt, no sugar. Nothing's cooked over 115 degrees, no vinegar with your food. And I'm like, what? I'm like, no meat. I'm like, what am I going to eat? I'm literally freaking out here. I'm like literally freaking out because like my whole life revolved around meat. We had meat saws, meat grinders. I made my own jerky. We made our own pepper. I mean, we made everything. I had 5 freezers when we kept them full of meat. So this was like, I'm freaked out. But I'm like, okay, Charles has got cancer. You're only going to be here for a short time. Focus on him. You'll get through it. They probably have a big salad or something. I used to like salad bar day in high school, but they had, hamburger meat on it. So I was like, it will just be that without that. So that's my mindset. So now I show up and they basically put us on purified water with lemon and lime juice in it. And then they started putting us these green juices with cucumber and celery, and half of that. Another half was pressed, fresh cut sunflower and pea sprouts, like these sprout deals. And then the Whole Foods, this big banquet every day, was sprouted nuts and sprouted seeds and sprouted grains and sprouted beans and vegetables and everything. They have like a 3-acre organic garden at this place. So they put you on nature. And what I didn't know is that I'm nature. And I'd gotten disconnected from nature through conventionally processed foods and all this additives and all this crap. And that's why I was having my problems. And I was cooking too much of my food and not eating natural food in its natural state. So they put me on all this stuff. And the first day I was off my Tums and Rolaids, and I haven't been on since. It's been 10 years. I was eating those things like I had the worst acid reflux ever. It was gone day one. Then they started educating you. The first class I went to was called Internal Awareness. It was taught by this guy who was full of muscles. Dr. Scott is just like, he was actually a bodybuilder, and so was his wife. And he looked fantastic. And he teaches this class on internal awareness, and he teaches us about what happens when you eat food from the time you chew it until the time it exits your body and everywhere in between. I was like, wow, that was amazing. And he was trying to convince us to do what was called a colonic or a colon hydrotherapy session. Are you familiar with that?
A little bit. Yep.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, if you're not familiar with it, you sit on a tube rectally and water goes in and out of you gently for about an hour, and it cleans your colon. It's not really that big of a deal, but being a guy from Eastern Oregon and all this stuff, and this guy's like, I looked at him, I'm like, what? I'm like, I ain't doing that. And I remember elbowing Charles, and I'm like, dude, I'll come here and help you, but I'm not doing what that guy's talking about. There's no way. But by the end of that 3.5-hour lecture, I was the first one signing up on that deal. And I went in, they weighed me. I did the 1 hour session. They weighed me again. I dropped 10 pounds of impacted fecal material lining my colon. And what that doctor said, and he told me before I even went, he goes, you have 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag. And he goes, that's the reality. And most people are walking around with 6 to 12 pounds of impacted fecal materials and mucoid plaques lining the small and large intestine. And these house harmful organisms like viruses and bacteria and molds and yeast and fungus and parasites. And also toxic chemicals that accumulate through the skin and our air and attach to our mucous membrane in the back of our throat. And they get down in that gut and they stay there. And as a protective mechanism, this mucoid plaque is built up inside of you to house and protect you from that crap going into the bloodstream. I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't know what was going on inside of me. It's kind of like a kitchen. Everybody, they keep their kitchen clean, but if you put your finger up on top of the fridge, there's probably a bunch of dust there. So out of sight, out of mind. You don't know what's going on inside of you because you can't see it, right? So he explains all this stuff to you and you're like, wow, I want to get that clean, So I do that, and then you go through kind of a healing crisis. I'm basically off of fast food and Carl's Jr. and that kind of stuff and eating all this fresh stuff. And I started getting headaches, night sweats. I was very irritable. You have stinky bowel movements coming out. I have a metallic taste on your tongue. Some people had parasites crawling out of their pores. One lady had a parasite crawling out of her eye. I'll never forget that. And why is that? Because most of us are living in an acidic environment and a low oxygen body. So what they do at the Institute at Hippocrates is they show you how to boost up your alkalinity and get you high oxygen. Well, viruses and bacteria and molds and yeast and fungus and these parasites, these harmful organisms, they don't like that environment. So they pack their bags and they exit. And that exit is like doing surgery without a knife. And it's not the funnest thing to do, but you got to get that crap out. That's what I did. That's what Charles did. And I remember after the terrible day, the last day, which was Wednesday, I woke up. I'd been on this program for 4 days. On Thursday, I woke up and I felt like I was 19 years old again. I mean, I had unbridled energy. My mental clarity was ridiculous. I felt like I was tingling. And I looked at Charles and said, dude, you're going to live. I'm like, this works. And we've discovered the fountain of youth. This is so cool. Here I am, 37 years old. I'm like, I think we've discovered this is like eureka. We found it. Like, this is what everybody wants. I'm like, this is so great. And we went home and we stuck with the lifestyle. And he healed himself in a little over 2.5 years. And he was free of his chronic lymphocytic leukemia, this rare blood cancer. And he's fine. And he's thriving today. And he picked up a guitar. He has a band now. He's got a successful business. He was able to go see his son graduate college, high school and college, and go to father-son weekends and do that kind of stuff. And I took and went absolutely bonkers crazy with this stuff because I couldn't believe it. Like, I was a mess and I felt fantastic. And then I come back, and then my friends saw me. In 60 days, I dropped all the weight. All my problems were gone. All the eczema was gone on my elbows. It took 8 months for that huge patch on my knee to go away. That other patch on my back was gone. The rectal bleeding stopped. My energy spiked up. And instead of walking the dogs, having them drag me around, one day I'm like, I'm going to run. And I started running with the dogs, and it turned my life around. And so I started teaching classes at my home on proper food combining and making raw food lunches or dinners for people. People come over for these dinner classes, and I taught over 2,500 people how to make juice. Probably up close to 4,000 or 5,000 people come to my home in 5.5 years. And I didn't charge them anything. I just wanted to share them what I learned, and it was crazy. And then I started speaking on the weekends at hospitals and churches and stores, and here I am. I'm a financial advisor. That's how I make my living, but I couldn't wait to get off work and go tell people about this. And then finally, my little brother got killed in a mountain biking accident. And about 6 months later, I was just sitting there going, I was so frustrated. I wasn't stupid anymore. I wasn't punching walls, but I'd slam my bed really hard because him and I were going to have a farm together. And we had some big plans, and he was younger than me. And when you have your younger brother or sister or something like that die, it's like, it freaks you out because like that could have been me, So I remember one day I was sitting in my office and I was like, Troy, what do you want me to do? And he's like, do what you love and do it now. I mean, I heard it so clear. And I called up Jeff, who was my mentor in the financial services industry. And I said, dude, I'm out. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, I'm getting out of financial services. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to start helping people with their health. He's like, well, how are you going to make a living? I said, I don't know, but I'm out. And I left and I bought a big dry erase board. It took me a few months to transition because I had to take all my clients to a one-on-one personal meeting with the guy that I was working with. And I was like, he'll probably do better than I did. He's the one teaching me anyway. So, but I had to do that. A few months later, I'm full-time And I just started coaching people for free. And after a while, we built a coaching practice. And now I do private one-on-one coaching and group coaching. And then we developed a supplement line because of frustration with the lack of regulation in the supplement industry and what's allowed for people to put in their mouth. I can't even believe it. So me being a coach, I've become an investigative reporter on food and supplementation. And what I found out scared me so much. I'm like, I'm not putting that crap in my body. And then, so I started this small supplement line just for me and my private coaching clients originally. And now it's kind of taken off and we're shipping worldwide and it's going crazy. So that's a little bit of the story. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but that's the gist of it. And it's been a lot of fun. And I can't even believe I get to do this. It's like I'm not even working this. I have fun. It's like I can be healthy and teach other people to do the same thing.
It's so funny how we kind of hear the same story over and over again, where we have loved ones around us that are getting sick and we are getting sick, and we wake up one day and we say, this is enough. What we've been told by the media or marketing of, milk does the body good. How many times have you heard that or seen that commercial, milk does the body good? And we realize and we look at the actual science behind it and we feel what it's doing to our systems. We're like, we've been lied to for so long. And when we uncover the truth, it's hard not to share it with everyone you know, everyone you love, strangers on the street, because you want them to feel as good as you do.
And it's crazy too, like what you're saying, it's the programming from mainstream media and constant bombarding of advertising. It's like, but in reality, it's like human breast milk does a baby human good until a baby human no longer needs it. That's what it should say. Or cow's milk does a baby cow good until a baby cow no longer needs it. And then what does it eat? It eats grass. And it doesn't. And where does the mama cow get her calcium for strong bones? She eats grass. So, I mean, when you stop and actually pause for just one moment and think about this stuff, it hits you and you're like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah. But nobody pauses because we're so busy doing stuff. And it's like, whatever, I like ice cream and it makes me feel good because 60 to 70% of the people that I'm coaching have severe childhood traumas. They've never dealt with it. And they're using the food as a dope to suppress and keep these emotions down, because when they don't eat, these emotions, they want to come up. That's where the real healing begins. The food, like I can help people with their food. I become a raw food chef, living food chef. That's the easy stuff. Changing your diet, that's easy. But going through that process of eating lighter and eating healthier will allow that energy, that negative energy, to move up through you so you can get it out. I guarantee you, I've had this happen twice after 2 crying sessions of over an hour, that you feel like you're floating around on a magic carpet and you feel like you have a new lease on life. And it's all that baggage you're carrying around.
Yeah. I have, 2 things. There's one, I study cancer cells quite a bit and how they impact what we eat, when we eat. And one of the mutations of these cancer cells is they have, depending upon the scientist and what they say, is anywhere between 12 and 17 times the amount of glucose receptors of negative cells. So I tell people, when you are craving sugar, what in you is actually craving that sugar? Is it the cancer cells that are standing up and saying, me, I'm hungry, I want that ice cream? And it's like we have these 2 armies, and it's like,
yeast.
Yeah, and we get to decide who we are supplying supplies to.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, we don't feel good, and it's like all we did was give the bad guys more armor, more protection. And it's like thinking sugar things. But I also have with my clients, it's kind of funny that if they have big sugar addictions or big protein, it's interesting how it almost always boils down to big sugar issues are what happened with you and your mom.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that. And big protein, like I need protein, I need it all the day, is like, okay, tell me how your dad paid attention to you. And there's lots of dad things attached to, I need protein all the time. It's like, did you ever get, your dad talking to you all the time and showering you with unconditional love? No, I never got that. Or I didn't have a dad in the picture. Yeah, well, you probably think you need protein all day long. You're asking, it's the way of your body, your core saying, I need my dad. And it's interesting how our mind and body, it's one. That's not 2 different things.
There was actually a lady, her name was Edie Mae Hunsberg. She actually went to the Hippocrates Health Institute a long time ago. She had cancer, tumors, and she got better. But every fall, her tumors would come back, and then they'd go away. And they thought this was very interesting. And what they found out is that in the fall, Edie Mae was just like this sweetheart lady, just like you. And everybody loved her. And guess what? In Southern California in the fall, what is there? There's figs and dates, and lots of them. So everybody had their own figs and date trees. They were bringing Edie Mae over all these figs and dates. And she'd eat them. And that was what was bringing the tumors back, because they're riddled with sugar. They're just full of sugar, right? So because at the Hippocrates Health Institute back in the day, they used to still juice carrot juice and beet juice and stuff like that had, people don't know this, but a quart of carrot juice has about a cup to a cup and a half of sugar in it. And sugar feeds disease, and it's definitely going to feed that cancer. It's like throwing gasoline on a bonfire. All disease takes off. So this is really cool, because now you've got a clinic that's measured now over 600,000 people, and they still had some sugar in the diet, right? And because of Edie Mae Huntsberg, they stopped the sugar from what they learned from her. And then what they noticed, a 26 to 28% faster recovery time with all clients with all disease across the board. So, and since then they removed sugar, and slowly but surely other places are also removing the sugar, and it's just faster. And here's the weird thing: cane sugar doesn't affect the cancer as much as like sugar from an orange or an apple. The natural fructose or fruit sugars are actually worse, because they will match up on more receptors because they're natural, where maybe 74, whereas a cane sugar's processed only has 5. They're both bad. So when people are thinking, I'm eating healthy, I'm eating fruit or something like that, when you're in the conquest of disease, you should have 0 sugar until you're well. And then once you're well, then you can go back to 15% of your food by weight, not by amount, but by weight. Could be fresh, ripe, organic, biological fruit, which is hard to get, because you mostly have to get it in your local area. Otherwise, they're picking it unripened, and it ripens on a 14 to 16 hour journey on a ship, and then it's shipped, and it's just not really, it's actually takes minerals out of your bones and stuff like that. Plus, fruit's hybrid today. Most fruit's about 30 to 50 times sweeter than its origin. So man has manipulated it because it sells. I mean, imagine driving down the road and seeing sour apples. Who's going to pull in and buy that? Not many people, right? Sweet melons. Oh, I want some of that. And you pull in, I love watermelon. I mean, who doesn't want to eat it, right? So those are just a couple little tidbits on sugar that are pointed out to me, and it's really important to have that education, knowing what you're dealing with in your life.
So chemical-free body, how did chemical-free come to? And
I actually had my company was a different name, but it was more geared, women didn't really connect to it. And this guy had another company. I'm not going to say who it is, but it was a pretty large company. Most people know it. And I got a cease and desist order. So I was like, you know what? I called my attorney, and he's like, hey, man, he's like, you can win this case, but it's going to take you about 150 grand, but you got about a 90% chance you're going to win. I'm like, the hell with that. 4 hours later, I'm like, chemical-free body. Because what happened was, at that time, I had just read the umbilical cord studies. So for those of you listening, just type in umbilical cord and chemical into your browser, and you can see these studies going back to 2005 that show that every single young baby and mother, the baby being born, they tested the umbilical cord blood, and they were looking for like 400 chemicals. They found 250 of what they're looking for, and 180 caused cancer. 212 caused developmental and brain disorders, and the scientists and the doctors refer to these as body burdens. These reports, different scientific, I think 2005, 2007, 2012, 2013, they just kept coming out, but it really never made mainstream media, because they don't want you to know about this stuff, because that stuff is controlled. It's very controlled, right? So I'm freaked out, and I'm like, I sat back and I was like, oh my God, we're all polluted. I mean, if the youngest, healthiest of us all, the young mothers and babies, are polluted that bad, then we are too. And the older you are, the more time you've had to bioaccumulate these toxins into your fat and your muscle tissue and your blood from the air you breathe and the water you drink and the food you eat and the cosmetics you put on your face and the shampoos and the harmful if swallowed toothpaste. Please contact the Poison Control Center. Check your toothpaste. If it says that, why are you putting it in your mouth? Aren't you swallowing a little bit of it every day? So these are one of these things where you pause for a second and think, you're like, oh crap. The solution is taking your buying dollars, instead of buying that toxic crap, and going over here and buying from a good company that actually cares and supporting them. That's how you change industry, and that's how you change your health.
Yeah, I say every single time we open up our wallet, we decide. We get to vote, not every 4 years, not, every 3, 4 years here in Canada, but every
Hmm.
single time you open up that wallet, you get to decide your health and the health of your community, your country, the world. And it's
Yeah.
huge. You feel so empowered when you do that.
Yeah. So chemical free body got born out of that because I realized that these are the no-see-ums, Marla. They're out of sight, out of mind. And I'm like, I can bring this to attention to people. I want to educate them and let them know that what you can't see is hurting you. And it is hurting your children and grandchildren. And educating people on how this stuff accumulates in the body and cleaning out the colon and cleaning out the digestive tract and cleaning out the blood. So what we realize is that a lot of people do detoxes and cleanses all the time. There's all different types of them. But a lot of people don't have the time or energy to go through that healing crisis part. They're busy, they're working, they got kids and husbands and wives and things they're doing, taking care of parents, and they don't have time. And they might do it and feel great, but then they don't do it again because it was too much effort. It was too expensive. So we've developed what we call the daily detox. And, we've, with Dr. Scott Treadway, he's helped us formulate, and he's one of the top plant-based formulators in the world. And the dude's 70 and his skin looks like he's 35. Okay. So I like taking information from people that are not just saying something, but they're living it and breathing it, and they're living the part, right? Like when I'm his age, I want his skin. So, he studied Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese herbology, and Western herbology, all of them, and he actually did clinical practice in India under thousands of years of apprenticeship. So he got to learn stuff that wasn't just like in a textbook that Big Pharma said, go do this or we'll fire you. It was more like, this is what works. We've tried and tested it true for thousands of years of trial and error and finding out what doesn't work. And boom, here it is. And one of those products that we have, our gut detox product, is actually from one of those clinics that's 1,000-year-old formula. He brought that over. So that's the one we use to keep the digestive tract clean and the organ systems clean. It's very gentle.
What is one of the biggest differences that you think about if you were to meet Tim from 10, 11, 12 years ago and just meet him on the street, walk by him on the way to the grocery store, and how you feel today? It's so amazing that you're 10 years older, but you're 50 years younger, really.
Yeah. Well, I guess the difference was, I think I've always been kind of a happy-go-lucky type of a guy, but I have learned how to deal with stress so much better. Like, things don't stress me out anymore. Like, I don't get angry. I don't yell at people. That negativity is not in my life. I have it up on my, and under my release thing, I have this vision boards that I make. And under the release category is a big sign that says negativity, just releasing that stuff, because that's low frequency. So I try to get rid of all the low frequency things in my life. And I try to add in things that are high frequency foods, high frequency people like you, high frequency water, high frequency conversations, all this stuff. And by doing that, so the difference between somebody walking up to me, 10 years ago and now is that, I'm way more open-minded. I'm not closed-minded. I think that would be the biggest thing. I'm not closed-minded. I am open because I've been shown things that I didn't even think were real, that are totally real, and the best way to do things. And it's really impacted my life. And now we've shared this with thousands and thousands of people all over the world. And it's impacting other people's lives too, which is really cool.
So from a chemical-free body perspective, what do you think is one of the biggest chemicals or one of the big things in the diet that we eat right now that it's like, boy, if everyone on the world just knew this one thing or this two things that we're being bombarded with every single day, what do you think that is?
Well, the number one thing without question, besides our air, would be the water we drink. Okay. So water is so polluted today. They've actually had scientists go 1,500 miles to the interior in these pristine lakes, test the water, and they're finding that the little 2 and 2.5 inch fish have both female and male organs now because of the estrogen mimickers from plastics. So if you're drinking out of a plastic bottle, even if it says BPA free, BPA is just one of many xenotoxins. There's other ones like BPS as an example. So you don't want to put that in your body, because for women, it's going to throw off your estrogens. Could lead to breast cancer, tumor development, cyst development, ovarian cyst, uterine cysts. For guys, you can get man boobs. That's why I'm like, I ain't doing plastic bottles no more. I don't want man boobs, or prostate cancer. So, these things are really messed up. So, and then in the water, Think about this. Every single pharmaceutical drug that people have taken in your area, they eat it. Where does it go? Well, it goes into the bloodstream, and then it goes out through urination, defecation, perspiration, and respiration. It comes back out into the environment. And a lot of it's going back into the environment. So in your tap water, it's in there. And there's some places in the US where a gallon of tap water has up to a half of a tablet of combined pharmaceutical drugs that people are drinking. So we're really getting dumbed down and doped up. So you're drinking like chemotherapy medication, you're drinking Premarin, you're drinking depression medication, levothyroxine for thyroid issues, you're drinking metformin, which is it's basically rat poison. So stuff like this. And this is going to cause problems. So we believe that your water should be triple purified. And if you live in a city where it's on high pressure pipes, then that water needs to be restructured, because the high pressure systems in the piping will make the water molecules kind of coagulate and get big, kind of like a bowling ball trying to go through a chain link fence. That's this big water molecule trying to get through your intestinal tract into the bloodstream. It's going to bounce off. You're just going to drink a lot of water. That's great. You're doing a good job, but you're going to be peeing out most of it. And it's not going through the cardiovascular system, getting into the cells. It's not getting into the lymphatic system to detox your garbage removal system. And it's just not working well. It's not going to get to your colon. Then you end up with an impacted colon like I do. You're not getting it to the brain, and you're having, brain fog and issues, and you can't find your keys. You got to hunt around and find your keys. That's the difference between having good water or not. So restructuring your water, make it really tiny. And then it's like sand through the chain link fence, and it goes through the intestinal wall, gets into the bloodstream, at least has a chance to get into the cells. But, we know a lot of people have cellular inflammation. So we help them with that. We try to bring that inflammation down, hydrate the cell, get a good fat membrane around that cell so that the cell can work properly and take nutrients in and get the waste out.
There is the nutraceutical industry is huge, and it's growing by leaps and bounds, especially this year, as everyone's grabbing for anything that says it's immunity boosting. So what is your take on the nutraceutical industry and what you've seen?
It needs a lot of help. There's a lot of really good marketers out there, and they know what people are thinking, and they know how to speak to that, and they can get you to reach in, grab your wallet. In fact, I've hired some of these people to try to learn marketing, because I don't know anything about this stuff. I was a financial advisor, and I know health, and I know how to make my body healthy, and I've over the last 5 years learning how to and continue to learn how to help other people make their bodies healthy, right? So, let's just go into it. So first off, 85% of these nutraceuticals or supplements on the market are owned by pharmaceutical companies. Okay, they're pure synthetics. Now, in total, about 91 to 92% of all supplements on the market are pure synthetics. Well, what's wrong with that, Tim? Well, synthetics are made from crude oil. That's usually where they come from, and they're acid-based. Your body is carbon-based. So we want things that are carbon-based. That means real food, real herbs, this type of stuff that will actually assimilate in your body properly. So acid is not going to work well with your carbon-based body. So anyway, now you're left with the 8% that are whole food or food-based. But then you have some problems there too, because some of them, they synergize with the acid-based ones. So you have, like, as a vitamin C as an example, the acid-based vitamin C, check your labels. If in parentheses behind it, if it says absorbic acid, then you're consuming a synthetic. If it says from the camu berry, or from the arceola cherry, or from the even best the amla berry, then you're getting a whole food source. I'm sorry, I keep hearing something's beeping up on my computer. But anyway, so they'll synergize those two things, right? But you're still getting a synthetic. It's ridiculous. So you need to have a whole food source. But now you have to check the other ingredients list. Because when somebody like me says, okay, I want to make this really good product for people, whole food, everything, then they send it off to a manufacturing company to make it. Per FDA guidelines, they can put little amounts of certain things in it. I'll hold this up and see if the camera gets it. But this is our jar of our Green 85. And can you see where it says no magnesium stearate?
Yeah.
No silicon dioxide, no dicalcium phosphate. So why would I put that in all of our jars? Well, these are three of the most common, what are called binders, fillers, and flow agents. So when you put a synthetic in a capsule, it's not going to take up much room. Americans and Canadians, we don't want to buy empty capsules. We want it full. So they'll fill it up with a filler. Magnesium stearate, which can come from diseased cow bones, genetically modified soy, genetically modified corn. If it's silicon dioxide, that's a level 3 toxin on the EPA's toxin list. They'll fill it up with that. Or they'll use that stuff for a flow agent so that their encapsulation machines won't cake up, and speed of production. It's about money. So not only do you have to get good quality ingredients, but you have to make sure that the way it's manufactured is done properly. That's very important. And that's why my raw material costs are so expensive. It makes it almost impossible to compete. Like right now, I'm still frustrated that I have to use these plastic bottles because we used glass in the beginning, but it was so expensive, and the weight to ship it was so expensive, and then it would break. So we're a small company. I mean, I'm just doing coaching, and we have, small batches of this stuff. So, it causes major problems. So we went to plastic, and now we're shipping. We got rid of the breakage. Our shipping cost is back into line with everybody else's, so we're more competitive. But I'm still like, if I was to take these greens and sell it at normal markups, this stuff would be $117 to $127 a jar. And we have it on sale right now for $57, but the regular price on it's $67. So, and we have packs and stuff like that where people can buy it in bulk and get on auto ship and save a little bit. But anyway, just to give you an idea, it's like, it's really hard to compete because people don't understand the difference. They don't understand that all of this stuff is juice extracts. It's not just wheatgrass. It was the blade of the grass that was ground up into a powder and thrown in there. That's cheap. I get to buy raw juice extracts, 4-to-1 concentrate, 6-to-1, 10-to-1, 20-to-1, whatever the most concentrated versions are available at the time from the best sources is what I purchase. They're the most expensive, right? And we put them in there because I built this stuff for me. It goes into my body and it's going into my clients' bodies. So that's really, really important. And we sun dry it or air dry it under 110 degrees over a 1 to 2 day period. So the life force or the enzymes are actually available in it. We can actually take what's called Kirlian photography and look at our product after it's manufactured, and it'll still have a huge glow or aura to it. It's kind of like a night scope for night vision if people aren't familiar with this. Whereas you can take another supplement that's like the synthetic absorbic acid and has very little there's no life force coming out of it. So that's why when people come to our booths at events, they'll take one sip of greens, especially if they're like intuitives or if they're Reiki masters. They'll take one drink and they're like, whoa, what is this? And it's like, well, it's our greens. I'll take 6. They didn't read nothing. They just know. They intuitively know, and they purchase it because they get instant transfer of energy because we don't highly process it. I even ship my greens off to a special processing mixer at another company and pay more just because he's got this really nice, expensive mixer that doesn't kill the life force in the nutrients and in the ingredients. So that's what's wrong with supplementation today. And there's some other diabolical things going on, and people have to be careful too, because they'll take a yeast, which is a natural, it's a naturally occurring substance, and then they'll force a synthetic vitamin into it. It's a acid based from crude oil, force it to eat it, and somehow it magically is no longer a synthetic. And then they can put that in your bottle, and guess what? It says organic on the outside, USDA organic approved, all this stuff, and you're consuming synthetics, and it's cheaper. So you have to know who's behind your stuff you're eating and drinking, and what they believe in. Otherwise, you've got a 92 or higher % chance that you're going to put a synthetic in your body and your children's body.
Yeah, people always say, oh, have people read labels. And I got so angry with these experts. And I was like, you want to know what? I'm going to take food, and I'm actually going to, as a food scientist, read this label and figure out the origin of every single piece. I'm going to go to the company. I'm going to ask the right questions. And for this one jar of tomato sauce, it took me as a scientist in this area 8 full hours. And it's like, who's going to invest in that? Is the regular customer going to?
No.
Of course not. They're going to. They're going to look at it. It said organic. I'm buying tomato sauce. It looks like it's good. It's, it just makes me, marketing sometimes out there makes me so angry with the food industry and the nutraceutical industry, because they want to make money. They don't necessarily want to make us healthy. And to have a company, especially like yours, that it's like, you are providing us what we actually need is huge. I can't thank you enough.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It didn't happen. It literally happened by accident. I still, if Charles didn't get cancer, we joke about it all the time. Like, dude, thank God you got cancer. I mean, I'm serious. And he's happy about it too, because it's crazy because like when you go to a place like that, like the doctors will look at you and like, what's your problem? Like, well, I've got lymphoma cancer, I've got breast cancer, I've got brain cancer. And they're like, oh, well, congratulations. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're one of the few people on this planet that actually gets a chance to live, to fully live your life and to make the most out of your life and design your life and create your life, because now your back's against the wall. So you're going to start taking charge of things, or you're just going to fold and roll over and die. But the choice is yours. So, you know, you learn a lot from that, because I thought these people were, I heard that from people when I'm there. Oh yeah, cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm like, what? These people here know it and they're nuts. But now I understand where they're coming from, because it woke them up. You know, I had one gal that I met that was there. She got diagnosed with breast cancer. Her husband's like, don't go there. Listen to the doctors. You don't know what you're doing. Stick with the doctors, blah, blah, blah. 2 young kids, husband that was unsupportive. She goes to Hippocrates. He's like, you're wasting your money. She heals herself, comes back, dumps him, moves into a small little apartment with her two kids, starts raising them. And now she wants to tell the world about it. Right. That was actually one of my goals when I left her. I'm like, I'm going to start a company someday, maybe. And I want to help people like her have a platform where she could actually make a good living and just, you know, do what she loves, you know? So anyway, but it's really cool watching people transform. I love it.
Yeah. And it's just like they're being born for the first time. So
Mm-hmm.
like you were saying with the umbilical cord story, from a young age, we're inundated with so much that we don't need. And then once we go through these healing transformations, it's like, oh, can your skin really look like that at almost 50 years old? And it's like, yeah, it sure can. This is how it's supposed to look.
Right.
Well, you shared with us your green powder for your juice, and I cannot wait to get mine. I've placed some orders already, but tell me about a couple of the other things that are like the highlights of your product line.
Well, the top 2 would be our gut detox and our toxin detox. I mentioned the gut detox earlier. That's that ancient formula from India. And it's just very gentle. It has like 37 side benefits. I mean, there's even studies on it that it's chemopreventative and chemoprotective. And it's just very simple formulas, 3 raw fruits. And it just microscopically cleans those intestinal villi, those little hair-like structures. And then keeps your digestive tract clean. And then over time, it will keep your organ systems clean. And it's just a really good body balancer. So I'll give you an example. When people would go to see Dr. Treadway at that, not him, but at that clinic where he was studying in India, he said, Tim, no matter what people came in for, no matter what, they didn't leave without being on that. That was the foundational product. Then they would do other herbs for whatever their problem was. But every single person out of 2 clinics he worked on wouldn't leave without that product. That's our gut detox product. And initially you'll get 1 bottle of it, and you'll take 3 capsules in the morning and at night for the first 15 days, complete the initial detox. And you can expect to get rid of that 6 to 12 pounds of impacted fecal material, mucoid plaque lining that intestinal tract, and without having to do the colon hydrotherapy session, which a lot of people won't do. I mean, I explain it well. I'm very convincing. I'm very, enthusiastic about getting colon hydrotherapy and cleaning out the colon because I went through it. But it is an uncomfortable proposition for a lot of people, and they just won't do it, some of them. So this is a great alternative. But even if you're doing gut detox and doing it that way, I still recommend get a colon hydrotherapy session, and preferably 2 of them back to back, 1 on day 1 and 1 on day 2. And there's a reason for that. And then maybe once a year or whatever for maintenance. There's nothing wrong with it. It's really good. Talk to your local colon hydrotherapy practitioner. Depending on your needs, they'll let you know what you need to do. But so that's one of them. Gut detox is awesome. And then after that, I just take 3 a day in the morning for maintenance. That's my insurance policy to keep my digestive tract and my organ systems clean. That is the driving engine to your health, is that digestive tract and those little hair-like structures. So you want to take care of them. And after that, now we got to focus on the bloodstream, the fat, and the muscle tissue, the heavy metals, the cadmiums, the leads, the mercuries, the radiation from Fukushima and all this nuclear testing and things we do, and radiation and plane flights and x-rays. And then you've got pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, larvicides, automobile fumes, jet fuel, rubber compounds off of tires, paint off gassing in your home. You know, MIT said that Pergo floors were directly linked to to autism in children, the off gassing, some of the chemicals in the laminate floors directly linked to autism, another problem besides the inoculation. So we're inundated with these toxins. So this toxin detox formula was actually 2 formulas developed for the military to get the depleted uranium out of them from the soldiers, because they were putting depleted uranium on these tank rounds, blowing up tanks and buildings and stuff. And that particles would go in the air, and then the soldiers were breathing it in, sweeping those areas and stuff. And now the children over there in these areas are getting thyroid cancer from these particles. So I said, Scott, 2 more formulas, man. I'm like, come on. So the reason I got them is because I heard about chemtrails, and I studied Dr. Richard Blaylock's work on chemtrails and about them spraying these nano-sized aluminum particles that go up our olfactory nerves through our nose into our brain and gives us Alzheimer's and dementia, and that kind of stuff leads to that memory loss. And I'm like, my grandpa died of Alzheimer's. I'm like, I'm not getting it. I called up Treadway and my formula. I'm like, hey, man, we need a formula to get this aluminum out of my body. He's like, oh, yeah, I've got a couple formulas for that. And he told me the whole story. I said, look, man, can you combine them into one? I'm like, I don't have the money to really start 2 more products, for God's sakes. So he's like, well, let me see what I can do. And 6 months later, he figured it out, and he had to add 4 more herbs to it to balance it and make it work. He's the smarty pants on that stuff. So he did it, and that's now called our Toxin Detox. So I just take 3 a day for maintenance in the morning with the gut detox, drink it down with the greens, and I'm out the door. And that's my morning routine, and it works. And we get a lot of people on that, especially people with heavy metal poisoning. There's also Krell in the greens, so that helps with heavy metals too. But it works. Every dentist or dental hygienist should be taking Toxin Detox. I mean, everybody should. We're all polluted. If you're eating fish, if you're a welder, you're cutting steel, you're around toxic stuff, you're a painter, we all should do it. But these are the no-see-ums, but they're killing people. And they're a body burden. And I don't want that stuff in my body. I want to get it out. So every day I'm gently taking it out. And those are the 2 main detox products. Then we have a probiotic spore formula that has prebiotics with it to feed those bacteria. These can actually go through the stomach acid without dying. That's why they're spore-based, very powerful. And when those spore-based are mixed with our gut detox product, it's like 2 + 2 is 10. There's a magnification. There's actually papers written on these 2 substances being together about how much better they are together, because one cleans and then the other one, repopulates basically one component of the immune system, which is the gut bacteria. And those are all soil-based microorganisms. And then the last one is our digestive enzyme formula, which is loaded with minerals and some liver support. So these are going to help people as they're transitioning to more raw and uncooked, unprocessed foods, which is very important. It's going to be hard for a lot of folks. You ate cooked food your whole life. The analogy is this. Imagine doing bench press with a broomstick. Okay, that's eating cooked foods. There's no resistance there. You've killed the fiber. So going through your digestive tract, it's like mush. It's cooked mush when you cook food. You denature it. And when you do bench press with a broomstick, there's no resistance, so you're not going to build any chest muscles. You're going to be very weak. Same thing with your gut. You're not going to really build your digestive muscles because there's no resistance. The resistance is the raw, uncooked, unprocessed materials from planet Earth, the vegetation. So all of a sudden, you've been eating cooked food your whole life, and you throw on the weights, the raw food, and whoa, it's hard. You can get gas and bloating and cramping and I can't do this raw stuff. So what we recommend is you take, let's say, find out where you're at now. If you're eating 20% raw, uncooked foods, bump it up to 30%, add 10%, and then chew your food really well. Take your digestive enzymes for a 2 to 3 year period as you go through this rehabilitation process. And as you're lifting these weights, the enzymes come in and they'll spot you and help you to rehabilitate that digestive tract. And then after 2 or 3 years, you don't need them. I still take them because they're one of the cheapest anti-aging formulas on the market that nobody really understands enzymes about anti-aging. But you can also look up Dr. Howell's work on enzyme therapy. The guy studied it for like 50 years. And that's a really interesting book, Enzyme Therapy by Dr. Howell. So anyway, we also have a standalone weight loss product, a product called Alpha Dude, which we're going to change the name to Alpha Energy soon. That one boosts testosterone, sperm count, libido for men and women, not the sperm count, but the libido.
That's an amazing product.
Who knows nowadays with all the stuff that's going on, but anyway, and then we have a recovery formula for people in pain that reduces inflammation. But we have 8 products, but my core 5 are the first ones that I talked about. And I actually take them every month. It's called our Total Energy and Detox Bundle. That's what I personally consume. And I always tell people, if you're going to check stuff out, just go to the products and check out the savings bundles and just pick one that fits you and start there, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Just get started. And we offer a double your money back guarantee because I know how the human body works now, and it's going to work. And if it doesn't, we'll replace it, or I'll find another company that has something that will work for you, because I've got a lot of alternatives for certain things. And we just want you to get well. That's the whole idea. Is like, let's get you feeling better. And then we'll go from there.
I love it. So yeah, I know I have one of the bundles that I'm ordering. I'm so excited. So if you guys, after listening to this, decide to order one of the bundles, let me know, contact me. We can do like our day one together, all together. But I know that you
Yeah.
kindly put together a discount code for all the listeners here. So if you head on over to wonderful Tim's site, which is chemical body
Yeah. Chemicalfreebody.com.
body.com. And if you
Mm-hmm.
get one of the products, and if you just enter in the code Marla, Marla, you'll get a discount there. You'll start like I am, and what we can do to get rid of so many of the things that impact our system. So I know, Tim, I wanted to end up with saying, what is the big fun things? 2020, ooh, it has messed up our systems left, right, and center. So what are the big things that you're kind of excited working on, big things for the next 6 months or so?
Well, as far as our business goes, I'm excited about putting together all of our customer support stuff. Because like I said, we're small family owned business. Like my son, he makes phone calls. Like when people buy stuff, we try to reach out to everybody, but I was doing it all myself at the beginning of the year. Every new client, I'm calling them, right? Just to touch base and talk to people and learn. And it was really cool. And then all of a sudden I started, getting on podcasts. And then like I got on a big podcast that has about 200,000 viewers, and I was out of my greens for 40 days. I mean, they completely sold us out, and reorders are coming in, and we're shipping worldwide now. So I'm trying to get all my customer service pieces in place so that we can scale and help more people. It's going in a whole different direction than I ever thought. And so that's really cool. And we launched our private group coaching platform for those that can't afford the one-on-one, and that's going awesome. We're just about done building out the back office of that. We're migrating people off of Facebook group now into it. So that's really exciting. For me, I'm really excited because I've worked for 5 years on this, like 24/7, trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing and how I'm going to help people. And then finally, I have no idea. I have no business plan ever. I'm just like highest excitement. That's that's been my beacon to move towards, and it works. And all of a sudden, the right people at the right place at the right time came into my life, and I've struggled. I put a lot of money into this, and I had a lot of money saved up, and I used it all up, and I was struggling, but that's where the universe wanted me to be, I guess. And now our business is absolutely booming and thriving, and I'm really excited to help more people. And this has been a great year because I've been starting to take weekends off, and I've been going seeing my parents. I'm going this weekend every 2 weeks. I'm going to see my mom and dad. They're a 5-hour drive because my mom just turned 81 yesterday. And, they're getting up there, and they're still on the farm, and there's a lot of work to do they can't do. So I get to go home and cut brush and cut trees and dig holes and fix fences and whatever they need, and I have the physical ability to do that, which is really cool. And I know a lot of guys my age can't do that kind of stuff anymore. I'm 47. It's unfortunate, especially when I know there's like Dr. Gabriel Cousins is an example. That guy's like 80 and he can do 30 pull-ups. So right. There's a lot of people out there leading by example, and all we have to do is copy what they're doing, and we're going to get similar results. I mean, it's not really that hard. You don't need, to go to school for 12 years and get a bunch of alphabet soup behind your name, to learn. It's like results. And people are learning that the corporate media and big corporate companies don't have their best interests at heart, and they're looking for smaller companies that are actually giving people results. People don't care about your degree anymore. They don't care about any of that stuff. They just like, can you help me? That's what I'm looking for. I don't know if you've heard the story before, but there was this little lady, and she went into her stove went out, and she went into a stove place to get a new stove. And this guy's like, yeah, this is the XR 1100, and it does all this and does all that. And then he went on for 15 minutes about the BTUs and all these things. And then finally, at the end of the day, she puts her hand on his shoulder and she says, can I ask you a question? He's like, yeah, sure. She goes, will this stove keep an old lady warm? And he's like, Yeah, it will. Right. People just want results, right? They want to feel good, right? So we try to take the complexity out of health. We try to help you focus on loving yourself
Mhm.
and putting yourself first, not last, because you have to do that not only for yourself, but to set an example for your children. Otherwise, your children are going to put themselves last and be right where you're at when they're your age. You don't want that. So you have to lead by example. You have to put yourself first. You have to love self. And then as you start taking action towards being healthier and having a better life, the universe will reflect that back to you. That's just how it works. What you put out is what you get back. And a whole new life is just sitting there waiting for you. You know, if you're struggling and you've tried everything, well, you haven't tried everything yet. Otherwise, you'd be feeling good. So I get a lot of the people that have tried everything. Most people come to us, they've tried everything. So and I'm like, I hear it all the time now. Like, oh, you tried everything. Okay. All right.
Well, here's
Do you
what I'm
have
yeah.
yeah, how about this? Have you tried detoxing? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you worked on your emotional baggage from childhood? You know, all these other things. And we come to find out that most of them haven't. And it's a really cool thing to help people break through and transform and realize their true potential and then start becoming a productive member of their own family and having a good relationship with themselves. And they become a productive member of community too. And then they become an inspiration to other people. Not that the people around you will change. Some will, some won't, but you give people permission to do it. And that's a gift that you're giving them. And they can grab that gift and pick it up and run with it, or they can just not pick it up and continue doing what they were doing. It doesn't matter. But you have the opportunity to change yourself and be as healthy and happy as you want. And it's just a decision away.
I love it. Well, gosh, thank you so much, Tim, for doing what you've done, for going down this path. I hope if I can say one thing to the wonderful audience here is just I'm going to give you guys the link to his website as well as the show that you have, and it is Health Hero. Well, let me see. Let me put it up.
Show. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, it's the Health Hero Show, and you can go to his website at Chemical Free Body. Join me. I'm signing up. I am so excited about this. I'm so excited that there's a product like this on the market that you can trust. You can trust, and I'll be sharing with everyone what my experience going through this. So you can keep
Yeah.
following along here, and I'll find it. But from
But
all
if I ever get bought by Nestle or Procter and Gamble, don't buy it anymore. It's not. They'll slip something in there, I tell you.
yeah, or
So
flip things out.
yeah, what we're gonna do actually is I'm gonna make this a company owned business eventually is what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna put it in the bylaws that it can't be sold and that the formulas have to be naturally occurring on it. They can never put synthetics in it after I'm gone. So I want it to perpetuate. It'll be cool.
Tim, how are you going to go? This is impossible. You're younger every day.
Well, I don't know. Maybe eventually in the future I'll decide to take my last breath and then I'll pop back to source and
Yeah.
say, "Wow, what a ride that was!" Right?
Yeah. And I
What a
also,
ride.
I know that we haven't talked about this, but I absolutely love your shirt. It says, "Love when you poop." I love
Yep.
it.
Yeah, I tell you why, because I wasn't loving when I pooped for a couple years, actually longer than that. So when you have bricks and blood coming out, it's not fun. It's painful, and it's not a fun experience. So when you have nice soft bowel movements and you're healthy, it's a really good thing. It's actually one of the main indicators we look at besides sleep patterns when we're coaching people. So
Mm.
yeah, it's a
So
great
much.
shirt.
I can't wait to keep following up with you and on with you with the wonderful products that you have. I can't thank you enough. And to all of you listening, I wish you the very best on your wellness journey.